Welcome back everyone to another video on Gotcha Interact. Today we're going to be talking about a new thing, which is a new Pyro Traveler. So a new character, kind of, just a different, basically, kind of, I guess, shade of the character. But I think that there's actually a lot of hype around the character, hopefully being a pretty good, useful actual character. Other versions of the Traveler have been kind of up and down, mainly down, but there are one maybe two if you push it that are pretty useful and can be pretty good characters. Hopefully this Pyro Traveler can add to that good roster. So Riff, let's go ahead and jump right into just the skill and the burst, looking at the Traveler, since the normal attack isn't really anything different than normal, just some regular normal attacks. When you use the skill, it wields a searing flame that can incinerate the very earth and has different effects when you tap or hold the skill. The tap version will call forth flames in a raging blaze. When used, the Traveler gains 42 Night Soul points and enters their own Night Soul Blessing state, summoning a blazing threshold that follows the current active character when you do so. When the blazing threshold gets too close to opponents, it will deal Night Soul aligned pyro damage to nearby opponents at certain intervals. Basically looking at some off-field. Now the hold version, it states that it unleashes fire in a composed manner, dealing Night Soul AoE pyro damage to nearby opponents, and when used, the Traveler gains 42 Night Soul points and enters the Night Soul Blessing state, summoning a scorching threshold that follows the current active character. When the current active character within a scorching threshold deals damage to opponents, the threshold will launch a coordinated attack that deals Night Soul aligned pyro damage based on the Traveler's attack, and that can occur every 3 seconds. So a little bit more application. Now, looking at the actual Night Soul itself, the Blessing states that it continuously consumes Night Soul points, and the Traveler's Night Soul Blessing state lasts for 12 seconds at maximum, and when their Night Soul points are exhausted or depleted, or if the skill is used again, the state will end. Blazing and Scorching thresholds will disappear once the Traveler's Night Soul's Blessing state ends, and one Blazing or Scorching threshold summoned by the Traveler themselves can exist only at one time.
Yeah, so that does look pretty good. The 12-second duration is not terrible, and then you have a cooldown on the skill of 18 seconds. So there is a 6-second downtime, but I don't think that's very bad at all. A rotation typically lasting 12 seconds, you're going to meet that requirement. It's going to be pretty good, and definitely want to be using the hold version of the skill, because looking at the multipliers, it is a lot more damage. The blazing threshold at level 10, assuming you have the talent crowned, is 50.5% as of right now, whereas the scorching threshold is 146.6%. So it's almost triple the damage. Not to mention you're getting that a little bit of extra application every 3 seconds, which that sounds bad, but that's adding on top of the fact that the threshold itself is also applying pyro and dealing some of its own damage as it gets close to opponents. So I think based on what this kind of looks like as the Pyro Traveler becomes playable, could be a potentially good option to offset Xiangling or just replace Xiangling. Maybe not be better in terms of damage, because Xiangling is just really good, to be completely honest, in terms of damage. She has really good placements for, vaporized teams and stuff like that. So I think she's just going to be replaced by this, in the sense that if you need application, like Mualani is going to definitely be able to use this. Mualani needs application. It's very important for her, but doesn't need it to be ridiculously fast either. She kind of builds up to her big hit. And so maybe there's other teams like that. I think this is just going to be a great secondary option to not be able to use Xiangling, because she's pretty much the only option we have when it comes to off-field application for certain teams. Now, yes, there's Toma, but that requires normal attacks constantly, so it doesn't quite work for everything like Xiangling does, just because it's happening automatically. So I already do like the kit very much, but looking at the burst, let's look at what that does. It states that it will condense the flames into a mark, dealing Night Soul aligned AoE pyro damage to opponents up ahead. Within the next 4 seconds, the Traveler restores 7 Night Soul points per second. And that's really all there is to the burst. Now, looking at the attributes, at level 10, assuming you have this crowned, without constellations, that is, we're looking at a skill damage of 769%. So it looks like a pretty decent nuke, potentially. We'll just have to see how that plays out. Has a cooldown of 18 seconds and an energy cost of 70. So with a little bit higher on the energy cost, maybe a little bit ER, but you're probably still going to run things like attack percent sands just for sake of damage. Maybe if you want full support, you could do ER if the damage is just lackluster and that's just not what you're going for, and you're going for uptime on application from the skill. And that really is the other thing too, is the fact that the pyro application in Pyro Traveler is coming from the skill, whereas in Xiangling Xiangling, most of it's coming from her burst. And because that's kind of one of the biggest issues with Xiangling that's very hard to get around is the energy cost and the energy needs that she just really needs. You can have her at 300% ER and you may not get her burst back. Like, she's just that energy hungry. And being an off-fielder, it's really difficult to actually funnel the particles to her, especially if you don't have Pyro Resonance. There's just a lot of things you have to keep in mind with Xiangling to be able to use her burst on cooldown. The nice thing here with Pyro Traveler is it's in the skill, so you don't even have to have the burst back if you are just focusing only on Pyro application for certain teams. But the burst does help with restoring the Night Soul points, and that's going to be important too, just because the skill is using her or his, whatever Traveler you're using, the Night Soul points. It's the Night Soul Blessing state, so it has a maximum duration of 12 seconds, but if you don't have Night Soul points for the skill, it's going to end sooner than that. So the burst might be necessary to refill that or replenish the Night Soul points so that you can get the maximum duration out of the skill every rotation.
Yeah, and I was gonna actually talk about that, and I think that's the thing with the burst. Although you don't want to necessarily, unlike Xiangling, where you are dependent on the burst to have application, the skill is the major help here. I don't want to say that, like you're saying, the burst is completely useless here. Most likely what you're going to end up doing most likely is using a hold skill, and then immediately once you do a hold skill, using the burst, and then switching to another character. And that's just going to allow for the application to still be running, while also, as you deplete your Night Soul points, that burst is going to, for the next 4 seconds per second, going to be bringing it back to maximum as well. So as the Traveler is doing that, that's at least in my mind the optimal rotation. Now, looking at a quick passive that I think it's going to actually help with that, because we were just talking about energy rift, actually, was looking at the second passive talent that they have, which is after the current active character inside a blazing threshold or scorching threshold triggers a burning, vaporize, any type of pyro related reaction, the Traveler will regain 5 energy, and that can occur once every 12 seconds. Additionally, when a nearby party member triggers a Night Soul burst, the Traveler will regain 4 energy. So being a quote-unquote Natlan character already themselves, having the ability to do that, and then having just them or the Traveler or another person do some elemental damage, you're now getting, if you're creating any type of reaction with Pyro, which most likely you will be unless you're running some sort of weird mono Pyro with that team, then I think here you're getting about 9 energy back from the second passive, and I think that almost brings it down to basically a 60 cost burst, actually, which you should be getting that almost every single time that you use your skill and burst. So I think that overall you can almost think of it as actually a 60 cost, which makes things a lot easier, like you were talking about Rift, worrying about Pyro Resonance, worrying about stuff to help particle generation and whatnot. You might still, depending on how the character is run, we might see other sets that might just do really well with the Pyro Traveler, but I think that overall this is going to help maybe mitigate how that is looked about a little bit. So probably a lot on the attack percent, and probably the stat after that's probably going to be ER, maybe some crit if you have, an insane version. But I don't know what your thoughts overall, Rift. To me, I am actually really excited for this. I don't want to use Xiangling like ever again. I'm done. I'm tapping out. This is a reason for me to actually build the Traveler, because I didn't really care to build my Dendro Traveler too much. So
I mean, I don't think you're alone. There's a lot of people that are looking for a Xiangling escape, like anything to not use Xiangling, and this is the answer to that. I feel it's just the Natlan version of Xiangling, just seeing a Pyro application character from off field. And yes, I know Dia exists, but it's just not very fast application. If Pyro Traveler's application is fast enough and is what we need for a lot of these other teams out there, which is the reason we use Xiangling, then hey, that's the substitute. If the application isn't fast enough, or it just seems just not good enough, then it kind of goes out the window. And that's what happened with Dia. When Dia was coming out and was new and still was unreleased, I think everyone was excited for the fact that, hey, it's an off-field application of Pyro. Maybe that can, go into a lot of these different teams, replace Xiangling. And then it turned out that wasn't the case, simply because she doesn't apply it fast enough. Now, for a character like Mualani, it's fast enough, because Mualani doesn't need it to be fast at all. She needs to build up her surf Sharky's bite thing, right? Other characters, though, Ayato needs Xiangling. Child likes Xiangling just better. And so that's just what it comes down to. And there's a lot of other teams that Xiangling's really good in too, even some Dendro teams. But, you know, with Toma being the only other option, you know, this will be a good thing because not everyone builds Toma. That's a very niche build because he's really only good for Burgeon. And the application is there for some teams, some very super, not strict teams, but like it just doesn't work for everything. It really only works for possibly an Ayato team. It works for Risley, okay, but Xiangling, once again, is just the better option, and so Pyro Traveler being a second best option is going to just feel really good. And also in the first passive, we see here that if the Traveler has over 20 Night Soul points, the attack AoE of the Blazing and Scorching thresholds from the skill will be increased. So that just means it's going to hit in a wider AoE, which is probably going to feel pretty great. And you're going to be getting that really just every time, because when you use the skill, you're gaining 42. You have a maximum of 80 Night Soul points. That's the cap. So there is still more Night Soul points to be had right after you use the skill, which is why the burst, I think, is just nice. Everything, there's a lot of synergy in the kit itself. It's not like, you know, something's getting left out. Because like with Xiangling, it's not like Guoba's doing a lot. If you're using the burst, the biggest thing Guoba's nice for is the particles to funnel back to herself. But also, if you don't have the burst, you can use it for a little bit of application, which can be nice, but it's not as much as you need from that burst. And so Guoba just feels like it's there. Yeah, he drops the pepper when he goes away, increases attack, but it's really not like a crazy amount. To see the synergy here in a new kit with the burst and the skill together, it just feels good. It feels good when you have a kit that feels complete. Not that Xiangling doesn't feel complete, but just to see the synergy and feel the synergy in gameplay is a good feeling. There's definitely a lot of fun factor to something like that. So I'm pretty excited for this. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to building Pyro Traveler, and I am personally going to be going a damage route just because the multipliers are there. I'm going to get some crit, get some attack, and see just how good this will be to replace Xiangling, because Xiangling has a lot of damage. So I want to know how well can Pyro Traveler replace Xiangling, not just in terms of application, but also damage.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's almost a better way to go too anyways. I think you're going to have to worry about attack, ER, and crit. It's going to be maybe the issue is that there's just a lot to worry about. But I think overall, either way, it's still going to be pretty easy overall to kind of build him. I think once you get everything set, ready to go, he's going to be doing very well. Now, overall, I think that the character is great. I'm really excited for him either way. I think that also with a lot of the changes that he's already gotten have been pretty good, or he or her have gotten, the Traveler's gotten, have been pretty nice. Constellations are also pretty nice as well. Obviously, just do the story, you'll get through, you'll get a bunch of them. I think that that's just another great thing that we're seeing. And the C6 even allows him to be more of that on-field type thing as well, which I'm sure Rift will try to do some sort of, you know, Pyro plunge team with something over there, I'm sure. But I think overall, this allows for the character to be a little bit more fun. And I think that that's something that in the Traveler we maybe didn't necessarily have. And I think that's the really cool thing, right? Because as you start to see this character, there's a lot of characters in Natlan that have, you know, they are focused to do certain things. And it's nice to see a character every once in a while that can play some, you know, kind of multi-roles on what they're actually doing, you know, and especially since the Traveler can be easily gotten to the C6. In my personal opinion, I think that I'm glad to see the Pyro Traveler be the Xiangling substitute and almost become with constellations because they're easy to get. I think because of that, almost him being the support turned DPS is better in my opinion than having Mawika be the support turned DPS through constellations as well. So that's just kind of something I'm actually very, very excited to actually care about the Traveler for once in a long time, for me at least. Well, that's everything we've kind of got overall talking about Pyro Traveler. If you guys have any other thoughts, any ideas, go ahead and let us know down in the comments. What are you guys excited for? Are you guys looking to bench Xiangling? Is this not cool enough or interesting enough for you to bench your Xiangling? Go ahead and let us know down below. Also, if you guys did like the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Check out our Discord as well. Thank you guys for watching the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.